On the 15th of January 2022, I was on a Saturday. I just got back with the kids.
I just barely entered the house when the first explosion happened.
The first impact was a pop in our ears.
It kind of shook the house because I see the window was shaking.
All of a sudden you hear noise coming out of everywhere.
And then an earthquake happened right after the first bang. We can see the cloud of ash going through. It's just like a mushroom cloud of ashes.
And then once the cloud was covering the sky, then we started seeing the darkness coming from the eastern side of Tonga.
That's when everything went black. After that, it just went black.
And we all panicked.
Run. There's a tsunami. There's a tsunami coming in.
It was devastating. The confusion, I think that's the best way to describe this. It's just pure confusion.
I can also hear a few kids from the neighbor, they were crying.
All we did was pray, and we didn't know what to expect.
I thought to myself, oh no, this is, that day that those people are talking about in the Bible.
We were totally devastated. We felt it was the end of the world.
My kids are still traumatized from the event. Whenever they hear a loud sound or the thunder, they'll run. I would not wish my worst enemy to go through that.
The massive eruption of an underwater volcano in the Pacific has seen Tonga's capital flooded by a tsunami and covered in ash.
Planes carrying aid can't land because ash has rendered the runway unusable.
The underwater eruption was so powerful that it was detected around the world.
A blast so massive it was seen from space.
Which scientists think is a 1 in 1,000-year event for this sort of volcano.
While the eruption was so big, it severed Tonga's only fibre optic cable which connects the country to the world, cutting all communications.
We are all a bit in the dark about exactly the scale of damage or what people are experiencing.
Well, this natural disaster was unprecedented. We have never had anything like this before, so there's no frame of reference.
We're used to cyclones. We're used to earthquakes, but not volcanic eruptions.
The tsunami, we refer to it as Hungatonga Hunghapai tsunami, was one of the most bizarre events that the world might have been, witnessed, because it was caused by a volcanic eruption. As we know, that tsunami are usually caused by earthquake.
This made it different because we did not expect it. It was out of nowhere. For tropical cyclones, we get a warning. We get an early warning. So we get to prepare. If we want to evacuate to higher grounds, we do that. But this was unexpected, and it was it happened so quick. It made it different. So we were panicking. We didn't know what to do.
Oh my God, we are not prepared for this.
Most of our scenarios were driven by, tsunami caused by an earthquake, so we didn't anticipate that there would be another problem with ashfall.
We saw everything in slow motion, and without understanding, the only thing that we can relate to is that it's the end of the world.
It was just confusion and fear. Mind you, it's a small country. There's a chance that you're related to someone in every village in this country if you're Tongan. And when the natural disaster happened, that's the one thought on your mind is, our families, are they okay? Where to run? This country is small. If we had a tsunami of a larger magnitude, I won't be surprised if it goes from one end to the other end of the island. Where do you run in that kind of situation? That fear that it brings out, it was terrifying.
It was unprecedented in the sense that all of us were frightened. I didn't know how to stabilize the mind of my children and the stability of the family and the people who follow me when I myself don't know what to do. So we were all affected in that sense. Yeah?
How do you prepare for something like this? But trying to survive. So the answer is that we weren't prepared. I think the whole of Tonga we weren't prepared for something like this.
Yeah, so most of the cemeteries, they all stand along the coast. Yeah, when the tsunamis came, most of the cemeteries that do stand at the coast were all just wrecked. Bones everywhere, all the graves were open, filled with water. It was sad seeing relatives and families coming and collecting all the remains of their loved ones. You could just see them crying while looking for everything. Yeah, and it was quite sad.
I never forget. And this is the first time I seen this tidal wave. And I tell you what, it's still getting in my mind. Sometimes when I sleep, I wake up in the middle of the night. I was sweating. Look like I'm running from nowhere to somewhere.
We are a strong Christian country, and it's a belief and our faith in God that came in to play a really vital role at that moment in keeping stability in people's mind, in people's heart, and just having some divine hope, because there was just no hope. Nobody knows what to do.
In terms of the islands, Tongatapu, the main island, also Ewa and part of Hawaii. It's like looking at a black and white movie on the next day. Yeah? It's like looking at a black and white movie.
We woke up around 6 or so, and the ashes was about this thick outside, all the way up the stairs. And I remembered when we were trying to clean them, I remembered counting, and I said to myself, I will count it to see how many sweep I'll do for one spot to clean this. 50. I'll stay in one spot and sweep it 50 times until that thickness of dirt can be shifted.
It took us almost 3 months to get rid of the volcanic ash, but you don't really get rid of it. I think you still see some lingering here in the main island.
Us here in Tonga, about 80 to 90%, we get our drinking water from rainwater, so that's how we collect that water for drinking. After the event, we have to clean our water tank and wait for like 1 month before we can receive any rain in our water tank. One of the key impact of the ashfall was also on the infrastructure, because the ash covered all the roads, and we have to be really careful on the road as well. And the airports were also didn't receive any airplane landing for a week. Even the hospitals were badly affected.
The truth is, our government system simply lack the capacity to fully handle any full-blown natural disaster of that scale.
And we did an inventory of the equipment that we had, and we had none. We had none appropriate to clean up volcanic ashes and even remove bulky waste from tsunami-affected areas. So we made do with what we had at the time.
There was all the new buildings that the government were putting up so they could relocate the people from the smaller islands in the front there that were affected by the tsunami. So all their houses and all that in the island were all wiped out. So yeah, the government stepped in to relocate them over here to the main island.
From a National Emergency Management Office perspective, the first key challenges was always shelter, food and water as well. Make sure that the private household, the families, have enough shelter and have somewhere safe to sleep and to eat and to dine and to stay. Especially some of them are evacuated in some of the evacuation center, so we always have to check those. And then we move on to the waste management side of things, which is also one of the key area that we were looking at.
Normal reaction of any community is that straight after a disaster is trying to get to normal as soon as possible, and that starts with cleanup. You clean up your place, salvage what can be salvaged for reuse, and then try to get rid of the waste and try to rebuild it. And that's what we did.
For the Nobelestiki, the first response was just like everybody else, is that we have to get up, assess the environment, what was going on, how are we going to clean up all this, and we helped each other. So we cleaned our own homes first, and we all moved as a community onto the roads and cleaned the roads together. It somehow was a blessing in disguise because it brought everybody together to the road. Yeah, so we helped each other clean the whole place.
If not for the Tongan community, we would still be in that recovery stage of cleaning up ashes to this day.
So for us staff in the Waste Authority office, we had to go out and assist the communities, help them with picking up rubbish, and this took 1 week for us. So we were very honored to help the communities with the cleanup after this tragedy.
It was pretty much just trying to clear out the roads, so for the distribution of aid and drinking water, tents, all the supplies that everyone needed.
One of the assistants came in was water, and of course they came in bulks of bottles of water made of plastic, and that's when Nobelestik was like, oh, that is not really going to help with our movement to control and manage single-use plastic in Tonga. What are we going to do about it? So instead of just mobilizing our normal communities, which is here in Nuku'alofa, we mobilized the whole of Tonga Tapu. We mobilized them in 2 days to collect an equivalent of 3 tons of compacted plastic litter into balers, and we managed to put them back into one of the Australian HMS Canberra, and it took it out of Tonga.
It's something that you would find out here in Tonga, is this strong sense of community. It can't be helped with a country this small. You have church leaders who have influence over their own districts. You have town officers who have influence over their own districts as well. So when they all banded together to get these communities to work together, every day you've had youth groups either sweeping the streets, getting all the ashes compiled together. You've had families visiting homes to aid in the cleanup efforts. So everyone came together, regardless of their differences, just to get this, overcome this challenge.
On n'est pas bé mon afio. Mon recamato che mi ha detto. On n'a pas fait perché tu as fare no. O scoto è mia kita me ma.
Cái này mà mình ngủ rồi vậy.
Io, o scoto mo ngô. Na ma poi edifia.
During the cleanup, some of the international community sending some of their expertise to assist with the cleaning up of the waste management, especially dealing with asbestos. Really assessing whether this asbestos exists in those houses that were damaged. They also used some of their resources, like some of their navy boats came in to take those asbestos and discard or dispose it in a proper way. They also help out with the other cleanup, the ashes in some of the infrastructures like the airport and some of the wharves. They really help to make sure that the wharf is fit for those huge ships to come in.
There was a lot of rubbish. Plastic, household rubbish, hazardous waste. So it was a very tragic experience for us to see these waste and the huge amount of waste that was left or created by this event.
We did see an increase of 32% in waste input towards our landfills. We of course keep a record of each and every truckload going into our landfills. So for that month of January to February and to March, we did see a sharp increase in waste input. It took some time. Of course, you might wonder why the waste rolled over these few months, because the recovery efforts did take time. We also at the same time had multitude of aids coming from overseas in the form of relief packages, water, food, and that did produce a higher output of waste too as a result.
That was pretty much the first things everybody was trying to get was access to drinking water, turn electricity back on, then try to establish communications.
Our communication with the international community was pretty much cut off, and we have to rely on other means such as the satellite phones.
A lot of our systems that were reliant on technology were redundant. This includes our banks. They couldn't issue payments to people because their systems are all hosted online on servers that link back to their main branches overseas. Payments could not go through. Our billing system for our customers could not be implemented. But of course, we did do things the old-fashioned way, went back to manual. Our operations manager had to hand carry the salaries of all the outer island branches to each island throughout this period of time. As soon as the communications were cut out, they knew to expect that their salaries would be coming there on a boat, despite the fact that we could not talk to each other. And that's a level of teamwork that I'm really proud of.
From this experience, we need to consider all scenarios that could cause tsunami. So for us, the scenarios that we built before were actually based on having an earthquake from the Tonga Trench. So for us, this experience has taught us that it could be both ways.
Learn from us. We came into this unprepared. severely unprepared. The response to the tsunami was great, but we were fortunate that the impacts were not greater than what it could have been.
And I think it's also good to have a disaster waste management in plan, just to guide all the government agencies, private sectors, even the communities, how to respond to a post-disaster event such as the Tonga by volcanic eruption.
So I think the community awareness is one of those key areas that we are trying to be really strong about now, like providing them with more information, early warning system, how do you get out of this kind of situation, how do you prepare yourself as a community before the first responder or the government can reach you, how do you make sure you're safe, you're more prepared.
We have the early warning system in place now, so we test it every Friday. So these sirens are installed to warn us if there are tsunami coming or any earthquakes. It could give us some time to prepare if any event would happen again.
I would really love to encourage other Pacific Islands to be engaged more with the community level, community awareness training programs. So for me, that's one of the key disaster preparedness activity, especially for waste management. Community have a way of doing things that us from a national level didn't really think they can do that, but they have a way of doing things more efficiently and effectively. So yeah.
So would love to see the increased number of evacuation centers in Tonga through fundings or international assistance, and for these facilities or evacuation centers to have equipment for disability access, for elderly, for young kids, and just for everyone, because we only have a few, and these few centers did not cater for the huge amount of people that were evacuating to higher ground.
It brings home to mind that only by working together, it's not just NEMO, it's the whole of MADEC, it's the whole of the Tonga Police, His Majesty's Armed Force, Tonga Fire and Emergency Services, Māori Tonga, Tonga Red Cross Services, all our Tonga partners. If we had not been able to work together with the communities, we would not have been able to come through this disaster. But yeah, I think working together with whatever resources that we have will just help us be more resilient and not be dependent.